Have you ever noticed how people chase numbers, status, and possessions, and yet many of them still walk around restless, anxious, and afraid of losing it all? The world tells you your value is measured in dollars, in square footage, in the labels you wear, or the cars you drive. But let me tell you, those are shadows, not substance. They are temporary, fragile, and bound by time. True wealth cannot be found in what you own, but in what owns you: your faith, your peace, your alignment with God. When you begin to see God as your true net worth, something shifts. Suddenly, you stop worrying about the ups and downs of the stock market, the size of your paycheck, or the competition around you. You realize that the source of all supply is infinite, and that you are connected to this source through your consciousness, your faith, and your trust. This is the wealth that can never run dry. This is the value beyond earthly riches. Money can buy comfort, yes, but it cannot buy peace of mind. It can buy companionship, but not love. It can buy recognition, but not respect. You may gain the whole world and yet lose your soul if you forget that your truest treasure is not in the vaults of banks, but in the vault of your spirit. When you walk in the awareness that God is your provider, your protector, and your portion, you are rich beyond measure, even when the world sees lack. Think of the people who have had it all in the eyes of the world, and yet confessed they were empty. That's because they mistook the shadow for the substance. Material riches are like sand castles, impressive for a moment, but washed away with the tide. But the wealth that comes from God is a foundation no storm can shake, no thief can steal, and no season can destroy. Faith is your greatest currency. Every prayer you speak in faith is a deposit. Every time you trust in God instead of fear, you build your account. And when the time comes, you will withdraw not just money, but miracles. You'll find doors opening where there were only walls. You'll find provision arriving when the world told you there was none. You'll find peace surrounding you even when storms rage. This is the inner bank, and it never defaults. To live rich in spirit means to see yourself not as limited, but as connected to infinite supply. It means walking through life with gratitude instead of fear, generosity instead of scarcity, love instead of envy. The richest man is not the one with the most possessions, but the one who walks knowing he is already provided for, guided, and favored by the source that never fails. Your net worth is not in digits, it is in divinity. When you stand in alignment with God, you become wealthy in ways the world cannot measure. Your life carries a fragrance of abundance, your words carry the power of truth, and your steps carry the confidence of someone who knows I am cared for. I am supplied, I am wealthy because God is my net worth. When we begin to reflect on the idea of wealth, most of us instinctively picture bank balances, gold, property, or business ventures. The mind immediately races towards something we can count, touch, and measure. Yet, this very reflex is the beginning of a subtle trap, because if our sense of value is tied only to what we can see, then it is equally vulnerable to disappearance. The introduction to true wealth does not begin with counting coins, but with questioning the meaning we've been taught about riches. We live in a world where headlines glorify billionaires, where society rewards appearances, and where people are conditioned to measure themselves against what others own. But pause for a moment and look deeper. How many of these same people with overflowing accounts still struggle with emptiness, fear, or dissatisfaction? How many wake in the night terrified of losing what they have accumulated? This is the greatest signal that wealth divorced from spirit is an illusion, a mirage that keeps moving further away no matter how fast you chase it. To understand what real wealth is, one must first accept that everything material exists within the boundaries of time. A house can be destroyed, money can lose its value, stocks can crash, and even the most luxurious possessions eventually decay. If your net worth is defined only by these fragile structures, then your identity is tied to something destined to vanish. The wise know that there is a treasure no thief can steal, no storm can wash away, and no rust can corrupt. That treasure is your consciousness of God as the source of all good. When you awaken to this truth, you find a kind of wealth that expands beyond the counting of numbers. You realize that the greatest introduction to prosperity begins not with accumulation, but with alignment. Consider for a moment the paradox of wealth. A person may hold millions yet still live in fear of lack. Another may hold little by the world's standards yet walk with peace, confidence, and joy. Which of these is truly wealthy? Which has a net worth that cannot be erased? The answer becomes clear: the one whose heart and mind are anchored to the infinite, the one who recognizes that earthly riches are fleeting shadows, while spiritual awareness is everlasting substance. If the foundation of your worth is built upon God, then you carry within you an account that never runs dry. Every introduction into spiritual wealth begins with a shift in perception. It is about moving from the external to the internal, from the temporary to the eternal, from the visible to the invisible. You may see a man driving a grand car, living in a mansion, wearing the finest clothes, yet if he has no connection to peace, no trust in God, his wealth is but a mask. Beneath the mask, fear gnaws, because he knows the moment his possessions slip away, so too does his identity. But when a man or woman rises each day knowing, my worth comes from God, my supply comes from God, my security comes from God, that individual walks untouchable by the storms of circumstance. This is a wealth no market collapse can diminish. Think of the soil and the seed. The soil represents divine abundance, endless and ever fertile. The seed represents our faith and awareness. If we only scatter seeds on rocky ground, meaning, if we put our trust in material illusions, they may sprout for a season but soon wither. But if we plant our faith deep in the soil of God consciousness, then even if a season seems barren, the harvest is inevitable. This is not theory, this is law. When you align your consciousness with the source, you are building an account that multiplies in ways unseen until the moment of need. The introduction of this truth is powerful because it forces us to confront the hollowness of the world's teachings. We've been told since childhood to aim for success, to chase possessions, to compare ourselves with others, and to believe that our value is in what we have. Yet, how many reach the peak of this climb only to realize the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall? The true climb is inward, not outward. The real treasure is cultivated in faith, in gratitude, in the awareness that your life is supported by a divine supply that does not fluctuate with the economy. It is often in times of loss that people discover this truth. When someone loses their job, when their wealth collapses, when a relationship ends, suddenly the illusions crumble. Yet, those who know God as their net worth remain steady even in loss. They understand that the visible channel may close, but the source never does. A river may dry up, but the ocean remains infinite. And when your faith is rooted in the ocean, you do not fear the disappearance of a single stream. This awareness brings peace in storms, confidence in trials, and courage when the world screams scarcity. The first step in recognizing God as your net worth is simply to ask yourself what truly defines me. Is it the number in my account? Is it the house I live in or the clothes I wear? Or is it my trust, my alignment, my peace in the knowledge that I am eternally connected to infinite supply? The moment you answer honestly, you begin to see where your worth truly lies. And once you see, you can never unsee. The illusion of earthly riches loses its hold, and you step into a new dimension of freedom. When you begin to walk with this awareness, even the material blessings you do receive take on a different meaning. You no longer cling to them in fear of losing them. Instead, you see them as expressions of an infinite flow, gifts of abundance that pass through your hands, but never define your essence. You can enjoy them without being enslaved to them. You can give generously because you know you cannot run out. This is the introduction to a life of spiritual freedom. To live by this principle is to carry unshakable confidence. You may face times where outward resources seem scarce, but you know they are only shadows of the real supply. You may encounter people who measure you by what they see, but you remain unbothered because you know your true value is invisible and eternal. The more you affirm, the more you align, the more you live in gratitude, the richer your life becomes, not just in possessions, but in peace, love, opportunities, and fulfillment. This is what it means to begin the journey of recognizing that God is your net worth and that your value extends far beyond earthly riches, The world we live in is dazzling, loud, and constantly pulling us toward the belief that material accumulation is the pinnacle of success. From childhood, people are conditioned to equate wealth with happiness and possessions with fulfillment. Advertisements whisper that if you buy this car, you'll feel complete. If you own this home, you'll finally be respected. If you wear these clothes, you'll belong. Yet beneath the glitter, a haunting truth lingers. Many who have reached the summit of earthly riches confess a quiet emptiness that wealth could not fill. This is the great illusion of material riches. They appear to promise freedom but often deliver captivity. They appear to promise joy but often bring anxiety. They appear to secure identity but often lead to a fragile sense of worth, one that shatters when the possessions are gone. The illusion begins with the idea of permanence. People treat wealth as if it were eternal, but it is not. Markets crash, currencies devalue, houses burn, possessions fade. The very foundation of earthly wealth is unstable, because it is subject to forces outside our control. When someone ties their identity to this unstable foundation, they live in constant fear. They may smile on the outside, but within they are consumed by the question, what if I lose it all? Fear of loss becomes the hidden tax of material success. The greater the possession, the greater the anxiety. This cycle reveals that the illusion of earthly riches is not only deceptive, it is destructive to peace of mind. It is easy to assume that wealth guarantees satisfaction, yet countless stories tell the opposite. Consider the man who has climbed the corporate ladder, amassed millions, and bought everything he ever dreamed of, only to admit that he still feels restless, unfulfilled, and strangely lonely. Consider the celebrity adored by millions, showered with applause, yet battling depression behind closed doors. These examples show us that wealth without spiritual grounding is like drinking salt water. It may quench thirst for a moment, but it leaves the soul even drier than before. Earthly riches create a mirage. They show you an image of fulfillment in the distance, but every time you reach for it, the image shifts further away. The illusion also hides in the comparison game. Society measures people against one another by the size of their house, the brand of their clothes, the type of car they drive. A person who once felt content suddenly feels inadequate when standing next to someone wealthier. This reveals how fragile material wealth truly is. It is never enough, because there will always be someone with more. The illusion convinces people that they are constantly one purchase away from satisfaction, one promotion away from respect, one investment away from security. But once they reach that milestone, the hunger only grows. It is a treadmill without an off switch. Another layer of the illusion is control. People believe that if they just save enough, buy enough, or invest wisely enough, they can control their future. Yet life is full of uncertainties. Even the richest man cannot control sickness, natural disaster, or the fragility of relationships. Earthly riches provide a false sense of security, but when storms hit, money cannot shield the soul from fear or grief. It can build walls, but it cannot guarantee peace within those walls. It can buy luxury, but it cannot buy the assurance that life is held safely in divine hands. The danger of the illusion is not in having wealth, but in being deceived into thinking it defines your worth. Possessions are not evil, it is the attachment to them, the belief that they are the source of identity and happiness, that entraps the soul. When people begin to measure themselves only by their possessions, they build their self-worth on shifting sand. The moment the sand shifts, they feel they have lost everything, because they confused what they had with who they are. This is why so many people crumble under financial loss, because their sense of self was bound to their possessions. The illusion is powerful because it appeals to the senses. It feels good to hold something tangible, to see numbers grow in a bank account, to receive admiration from others for what you own. Yet what appeals to the senses is not always what nourishes the soul. A feast may look lavish on the table, but if it contains no real nourishment, the body weakens. The soul, too, weakens when it is fed only by possessions. True nourishment comes from the unseen, from peace, love, gratitude, and trust in God. Without these, earthly riches become like empty calories. They fill for a moment but leave a deeper hunger behind. Those who break free from the illusion understand a liberating truth: material riches are tools, not treasures. They are means, not ends. They are resources, not identities. A wealthy man who knows this may enjoy his possessions, but he is not possessed by them. He can give generously because his sense of worth is not diminished by loss. He can live simply because his value is not increased by accumulation. Such a person is no longer trapped in the illusion, because they see wealth for what it is: temporary, external, and limited. The illusion also distracts from what truly matters. People spend lifetimes chasing careers, building empires, and collecting possessions, only to look back and realize they neglected relationships, ignored their inner growth, or silenced the voice of God calling them to deeper purpose. The illusion blinds us to the eternal by dazzling us with the temporary. But when the temporary fades, as it inevitably does, many are left with regret. Regret that they spent more time chasing numbers than nurturing souls, more time guarding possessions than cultivating peace, more time pursuing approval than walking in purpose. Breaking the illusion requires courage, because it means swimming against the current of society. It means daring to say, "My worth is not for sale. My value is not in what I own. My identity is not tied to possessions." When someone begins to affirm this truth, the illusion loses its grip. Suddenly, life feels lighter because it is no longer bound by constant comparison. Anxiety decreases because there is no longer fear of losing what defines you. Joy increases because it comes not from external acquisition but from internal connection. The illusion of earthly riches is powerful, but it is also fragile. It collapses the moment someone opens their eyes to the deeper reality, that what is eternal is always greater than what is temporary, that what is unseen is more powerful than what is seen, and that the true treasure lies not in possessions, but in the one who supplies all things. Once you recognize this, you can live in the world, enjoy its blessings, and use its resources, but never again be deceived by its illusions. When we speak of God as the source of abundance, we are stepping into a truth that liberates the mind from the chains of scarcity. The human tendency is to believe that resources come only from visible channels: a paycheck, a business, an investment, or another person's generosity. Yet when you look closer, all of these channels are but conduits, not the origin. The true origin is invisible, eternal, and inexhaustible. It is the infinite supply of God, ever present and always flowing. To recognize this is to unlock the door to peace, for once you know that God is the source, you no longer live in fear of lack or in anxiety over where your provision will come from. You begin to see every channel as temporary, but the source as eternal. The beauty of this awareness is that it shifts how you interpret circumstances. For many, the closing of a door or the drying up of an income stream feels like the end. But if God is the source, then no door truly defines your destiny. The channel may close, but the source remains infinite. A job loss may feel devastating, but it is only the closing of one channel. God has infinite ways to open new channels, and often, what seems like a loss is simply a redirection towards something greater. When the mind clings to the idea that supply comes only from one channel, fear grows. But when the mind anchors in the truth that the infinite is behind every good thing, faith grows. This perspective also changes the way we view wealth itself. Many people operate from a belief that wealth is limited, that there is not enough to go around, that for one person to prosper, another must lose. But divine abundance is not a pie divided into slices. It is an ocean with no end. One person's blessing does not diminish the possibility of another's. When you understand this, envy dissolves and competition fades. You no longer need to fight or grasp desperately for your portion, because you know that the source has an endless supply. What belongs to you will flow to you, and no one else's success can take it away. God's abundance is also not restricted by the world's economy. Markets may rise and fall, currencies may fluctuate, and industries may collapse, but divine supply is not tied to the limitations of human systems. Those who root their trust in earthly wealth often live in fear of these fluctuations, but those who trust in God's abundance live with calm assurance that provision is constant. This assurance is not passive, it is active faith. It is the willingness to affirm that even in the midst of apparent lack, there is more than enough. It is the inner conviction that even if one channel is blocked, the infinite has countless others. Understanding God as the source of abundance also brings freedom from the need to hoard. When people believe that resources are scarce, they cling tightly to what they have, fearful of giving or sharing. But when you know that supply is infinite, generosity becomes natural. You give freely, knowing that you cannot outgive the source. The more you release, the more flows back to you, not because of luck, but because generosity aligns you with the very nature of abundance. The open hand always receives more than the closed fist. This is why so many who live generously often find themselves continually replenished. They understand the law of circulation. What flows out must flow back in, multiplied. To affirm God as the source is to begin seeing wealth not only as money but as a multidimensional flow. Abundance shows up in peace of mind, in relationships filled with love, in opportunities that arrive at the right time, in health that allows you to enjoy your days, and in inner joy that sustains you through trials. These are forms of wealth far more valuable than numbers on a page. When you live in awareness of the source, you begin to notice blessings everywhere. You notice how needs are met in unexpected ways, how opportunities align when you step in faith, how solutions appear when you remain centered in trust. There is also a profound humility that comes with this realization. When people believe their wealth is solely the result of their effort, pride creeps in. But when you see God as the source, you understand that while effort is important, it is never the sole provider. You may work diligently, but it is God who gives strength, wisdom, and opportunity. You may plan carefully, but it is God who directs steps and opens doors. This humility does not diminish effort, it sanctifies it. It allows you to work with excellence without being enslaved to the outcome, because you know the true supply is beyond your control and yet always in your favor. Seeing God as the source also breaks the cycle of worry. Worry is the belief in scarcity dressed as concern. It is the inner voice that says, "What if there isn't enough? What if I fail? What if it doesn't come?" But once you know the source is infinite, worry becomes unnecessary. The same source that provided yesterday will provide today and tomorrow. The same infinite that fed you in one season will feed you in the next. Trust replaces anxiety, and peace becomes your constant companion. This truth also empowers resilience. When the storms of life come, and they will, you can stand firm not because circumstances are perfect, but because your foundation is unshakable. The person who trusts only in material channels collapses when those channels dry up. But the person who knows the source remains steady, because their supply is never truly threatened. They can lose possessions and still feel rich. They can face setbacks and still expect provision. They can walk through uncertainty and still radiate peace, because they know the infinite is always at work, orchestrating abundance behind the scenes. The recognition of God as the source of abundance is more than an idea. It is a practice. It is a daily choice to look beyond appearances and affirm truth. When lack appears, the practice is to declare, "My supply comes from God, not from this channel, and therefore I am secure." When fear arises, the practice is to remember, "Infinite abundance surrounds me, and I am connected to it at all times." When opportunities seem scarce, the practice is to affirm, "The source is limitless, and new doors are opening for me even now." These practices shift the mind from fear to faith, from scarcity to sufficiency, from doubt to certainty. As you deepen in this awareness, life transforms. You begin to walk with calm assurance instead of frantic striving. You begin to trust the flow instead of resisting it. You begin to live generously instead of hoarding in fear. You begin to recognize blessings not as accidents, but as natural expressions of the infinite. And in this recognition, you discover that true abundance has been available all along, waiting only for you to see that God is, and always has been, the source of every good thing in your life. Faith is the greatest currency you will ever hold, and unlike the paper bills and digital numbers of this world, it never loses its value. The inner bank of faith is not tied to human systems, interest rates, or markets. It is anchored in the eternal and flows directly from your alignment with God. To understand this is to unlock a truth that transforms how you live, because it reveals that every thought of trust, every act of surrender, every declaration of belief is a deposit into an invisible account that produces real results in your life. Faith does not operate by the world's economy, but by divine law, and when you build this account, you are positioning yourself for withdrawals of miracles, opportunities, and peace beyond comprehension. Think about how banks operate in the natural. You deposit money, you allow it to grow, and in time you draw from that account. The same is true with faith, only far more powerful. Every time you choose to trust instead of doubt, you deposit. Every time you speak words of life instead of fear, you deposit. Every time you act on your belief rather than shrinking back, you deposit. And though you may not see the balance on a digital screen, that account is real, and when the time comes, it manifests in ways that often defy logic. The world calls them coincidences, but those who understand know they are divine withdrawals, answers to prayers, unexpected provision, sudden favor, and doors that no man can shut. The inner bank of faith also teaches patience. Unlike instant gratification, this account grows in the unseen before it shows up in the seen. A farmer plants seed in the soil, and for weeks it looks like nothing is happening. But underground, roots are forming, life is expanding, and in due time, the harvest breaks through. Faith works the same way. You may declare, believe, and act, yet for a time, it may appear that nothing is changing. But unseen, things are shifting, aligning, and preparing for manifestation. This is why people who give up too soon never experience the harvest. They stop watering their faith before it can break through the soil. But those who persist, who continue depositing, who hold steadfast even when appearances suggest otherwise, will always see the fruit. This bank also operates with a law of multiplication. In human systems, deposits grow with interest. In the divine system, deposits grow with exponential return. A single act of faith can ripple into countless blessings. A single declaration of trust can shift the course of events. A single moment of obedience can open doors for years to come. When you invest in faith, you are not bound to the small returns of the world. You are tapping into an infinite source that multiplies beyond measure. The withdrawals from this inner account come in many forms. Sometimes they are material, unexpected financial provision, a job opportunity, or resources arriving just when needed. Sometimes they are relational reconciliation, favor, or divine connections that elevate your life. Sometimes they are internal peace in the storm, courage in the battle, or clarity in confusion. Each of these is evidence of a withdrawal made possible by the deposits of trust, gratitude, and belief you have built over time. And the beauty is, unlike worldly accounts, this bank never runs dry. The more you withdraw, the more is available, because the source is infinite. Another truth about this inner bank is that it requires discipline. Just as people consistently deposit money into a savings account to prepare for the future, so too must you consistently deposit faith. It cannot be an occasional act, reserved only for times of crisis. Faith grows strongest when exercised daily. Every small act of trust, every simple prayer of gratitude, every moment you choose faith over fear strengthens the balance within you. Then, when the storms of life arise, you do not panic because you know your account is full. You know you have stored up deposits that will sustain you, and you walk in confidence, unshaken by the temporary waves. Fear, on the other hand, is like a withdrawal that drains the account. Every time you give in to fear, doubt, or negativity, it siphons away from what could have been. Fear is costly because it corrodes faith, and when unchecked, it leaves people spiritually bankrupt. But the good news is, every moment is a chance to rebuild. No matter how many withdrawals fear has made in the past, today you can begin depositing again. You can choose to affirm life, to trust the source, to speak words of abundance, and instantly, the rebuilding begins. This is a bank where it is never too late to start over, never too late to increase your balance, never too late to grow wealthy in faith. The inner bank of faith also frees you from dependency on external validation. In the world, people measure worth by visible wealth, but in the spiritual economy, the invisible account is far more powerful. A person may appear poor in the eyes of the world yet walk in an abundance that cannot be explained because their inner bank is overflowing. Another may appear rich outwardly yet live in anxiety and fear because their inner account is empty. The true test of wealth is not what can be counted in numbers, but what can be counted in faith. There is also a principle of alignment connected to this account. Just as banks require proper management, the bank of faith requires that your actions align with your beliefs. It is not enough to declare trust while living in fear-driven behavior. Faith deposits are made not only by what you say, but by how you act. When your actions reflect your belief, your account grows. When your steps are guided by trust instead of panic, the balance multiplies. Alignment between thought, word, and action is the currency that strengthens the flow of divine provision. This bank is not only personal, it also blesses others. When your account is full, you overflow into the lives of those around you. Your words encourage, your peace calms, your confidence inspires. You become a lender of hope, sharing withdrawals from your own account to uplift others who are struggling. And the act of pouring into others does not diminish your balance, it increases it, because generosity in spirit multiplies faith just as generosity with money multiplies provision. Living with awareness of the inner bank of faith transforms how you see challenges. What once appeared as obstacles now look like opportunities to deposit. Every trial is a chance to trust deeper. Every setback is a chance to affirm stronger. Every delay is a chance to demonstrate patience. Instead of draining you, challenges become opportunities to increase your account. This is why some of the most spiritually wealthy people are those who have faced great trials. They have made consistent deposits in the darkest moments, and as a result, their inner bank is overflowing. The greatest beauty of this truth is that it puts control back into your hands, not in the sense of manipulating outcomes, but in the sense of choosing where to place your trust. The world may fluctuate, but you can always choose faith. The economy may decline, but you can always choose gratitude. Circumstances may seem impossible, but you can always choose to affirm possibility. Every choice builds the account, every moment adds to the balance, and every act of trust prepares you for a future filled with unseen provision waiting to be revealed. To live rich in spirit is to step into a life that cannot be measured by possessions, status, or recognition, but by the depth of inner peace, gratitude, and divine favor that flows through your days. True richness is not in what the eyes can see or the hands can touch, but in the consciousness that recognizes abundance everywhere. When you live rich in spirit, you are not waiting for wealth to validate your worth. You already walk in the awareness that you are supplied, you are loved, you are guided, and you are blessed beyond the reach of circumstances. This richness cannot be bought or sold, it cannot be stolen or diminished, and it cannot be shaken by the storms of life. It is a wealth that resides in your spirit, a wealth that radiates from the inside out. Living rich in spirit begins with gratitude. Gratitude is the language of abundance, the key that unlocks more blessings, and the daily practice that keeps the heart aware of how much already exists. Many live in lack because they focus only on what they do not have, constantly comparing themselves to others, constantly lamenting over what is missing. But when you shift your focus to what you do have, to the breath in your lungs, the food on your table, the roof over your head, the opportunities around you, you realize that you are already surrounded by riches. Gratitude multiplies what it touches. The more you express thanks for small blessings, the more your awareness expands to see greater ones. A grateful spirit is always rich, no matter the numbers in the bank. Another element of living rich in spirit is generosity. Generosity is the evidence of abundance flowing through you. When you give freely, whether it is time, encouragement, kindness, or resources, you are declaring that you are not in lack, you are in overflow. The act of giving does not diminish you, it enlarges you. Those who clutch tightly to every possession live in fear of loss, but those who give live in the joy of circulation. The open hand both gives and receives, while the closed hand neither gives nor receives. Living rich in spirit means you trust that as you release, more will flow back to you, not because of human systems but because divine law guarantees that what you sow, you shall also reap. Peace is another measure of spiritual wealth. There are people who appear rich on the outside, but are restless, anxious, and tormented within. They cannot sleep without fear of losing what they have. They cannot enjoy their possessions because they are too consumed with protecting them. This is not true wealth. It is slavery disguised as success. Living rich in spirit means cultivating peace that surpasses understanding, the kind of peace that remains steady regardless of circumstances. Peace is priceless. It allows you to enjoy the present moment without being consumed by worry about the future. It is the crown jewel of spiritual wealth, and it flows from trust in God's provision. To live rich in spirit is also to walk in love. Love is the currency of heaven, the force that elevates every interaction and every relationship. When your heart is filled with love, you see others not as competitors or obstacles but as fellow travelers, as brothers and sisters. Love transforms how you view success, not as a selfish climb but as an opportunity to lift others along the way. It transforms how you view possessions, not as trophies to display but as tools to bless. Love is the wealth that never diminishes the more it is shared. A person who lives in love is richer than the one who hoards gold, because love leaves a legacy that outlives possessions. Living rich in spirit also means walking with confidence in divine favor. It is to know deep within that your steps are guided, your path is directed, and your life is surrounded by opportunities designed for your good. Confidence in divine favor does not mean life will be free from challenges, but it does mean you approach challenges with assurance that you are not alone and that everything is working for your good. This assurance allows you to move forward boldly, to take risks when necessary, to trust the unfolding of your journey, because you know you are backed by the infinite supply of God. This confidence is a wealth that no economy can grant and no downturn can take away. Another dimension of living rich in spirit is contentment. Contentment is not the absence of ambition, it is the presence of peace while pursuing growth. It is the ability to say, I am grateful for what I have today, and I look forward to what tomorrow brings. Many people delay joy until they achieve some milestone, constantly postponing happiness. But those who are rich in spirit do not wait. They find joy in the present moment, in small victories, in everyday blessings. Contentment does not mean settling. It means knowing that your worth is not tied to future achievements. You can still pursue goals, but you do so from a place of fullness, not desperation. Living rich in spirit also means having resilience. Life will test you with losses, disappointments, and delays. But those who are rich in spirit know that setbacks are not the end, they are stepping stones. They carry a wealth of faith that allows them to rise after every fall, to learn from every failure, and to grow stronger with every challenge. Resilience is a form of spiritual capital, and it ensures that no storm can bankrupt you. Even when external resources seem shaken, inner strength remains, and this is the kind of wealth that sustains a lifetime. When you live rich in spirit, your perspective on material wealth also changes. You may still earn, save, and invest, but you no longer define yourself by these things. They become tools to use, not treasures to worship. You can enjoy possessions without being enslaved to them, and you can let go without fear of loss. This freedom is one of the greatest signs of spiritual wealth. You own things, but they do not own you. You can walk into abundance without pride and into simplicity without shame, because your worth was never tied to possessions in the first place. Living rich in spirit also means you radiate abundance wherever you go. People feel it in your presence, hear it in your words, and see it in your actions. You carry an atmosphere of possibility, of hope, of assurance. This is why those who live rich in spirit often attract opportunities and blessings. They live in alignment with abundance, and abundance naturally flows toward them. Their inner wealth becomes visible, drawing resources, connections, and favor into their lives. This magnetic quality is not manipulation. It is the natural outcome of living in harmony with divine law. At the heart of it all, To live rich in spirit is to know that your wealth is not in the hands of the world, but in the hands of God. It is to walk each day aware that you are supported, provided for, and surrounded by blessings that cannot be measured in numbers. It is to wake with gratitude, live with generosity, walk in peace, love deeply, and move with confidence in divine favor. This is the kind of richness that cannot fade, cannot be stolen, and cannot be destroyed, because it flows from the eternal source within you,